Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Day 20 of the war, reports say it's entering a new phase. Donald Trump is mulling a ground operation, meaning US troops on Iranian soil. We look at what this would mean. This comes in the wake of a major escalation. Israel attacked Iran's gas field, the biggest gas field in the world. Iran retaliated by attacking Qatar. Trump fired a threat saying he'll blow up the whole thing. He also blamed Israel for the escalation. Is this an act or a rift between the allies? Either way, the markets are nervous. In India, stocks crashed today. Investors lost 12 lakh crore rupees in a single day. Meanwhile, the Americans are grappling with the fallout of their war. Is this a superpower that has lost control? In the middle of this mess, Japan's Prime Minister is in the White House. We'll tell you how the war has driven a wedge between Trump and Takaichi, and how the US President is using video game imagery to sell this war. Plus, a closer look at the testimony of the US intelligence chief. She says Iran was not building a bomb, but Pakistan is building nuclear missiles that can hit the US. So will Trump attack Pakistan? And finally, the real-life spy thriller which is playing out in India. 1 American and 6 Ukrainians arrested over suspected terror links. Apparently, the tip-off came from Russia. All this and more lined up. The headlines first. Prime Minister Narendra Modi discusses the war in West Asia with several world leaders. He spoke with the leaders of Oman, Malaysia, France and the King of Jordan. During the calls, the Indian Prime Minister stressed on the need for de-escalation and a return to dialogue. Iran executes 3 men accused of killing police officers during the protests in January. The trio included a teenage wrestling champion. These are the first hangings that Tehran has carried out related to the nationwide demonstrations. More than 3,000 people had died during the unrest. China does not currently plan to invade Taiwan in 2027 and seeks to take control of it without force. That is the finding of a US intelligence report. Beijing responded to this report by asking Washington to speak and act cautiously on Taiwan. China claims a self-rule island as part of its territory and has threatened to use force to seize it. A drone from war-torn Sudan kills at least 17 people after it bombed a border town in eastern Chad. This incident is the latest spillover into Chad from the conflict in the Sudan. In late February, Chad closed its border, but that has not stopped the violence. And heavy rains and strong winds sweep across Pakistan's financial capital, Karachi. At least 18 people have lost their lives. Last year, monsoon rains had killed more than 1,000 people. Pakistan is among the countries most vulnerable to climate change.
Burning to the ground right now.
The Iran war could be entering a new phase, a new and more dangerous phase, one that could lead to yet another endless American war. I'm talking about ground deployments, US troops on Iranian soil. In the last decade, this was a red line. For US politicians, it was a red line, an absolute no-go zone. The memories of Iraq and Afghanistan were fresh, so nobody wanted to deploy American soldiers abroad. But that may be about to change. Take a look at this new media report. It says President Donald Trump is thinking about sending more troops to West Asia. Thousands, according to this report. Apparently, the goal is to give more options to Trump. And what are those options? Well, US sources talk about three main ones. Number one, securing the Strait of Hormuz. This will primarily be done by US Navy and Air Force, and American soldiers could be deployed along the Gulf Coast. Basically, the troops will secure the shoreline. The Navy and the Air Force will secure the waters. That's the first option. Option number two, capturing the Kharg Island. We've been telling you about this island. Kharg is an island in the Persian Gulf. It processes nearly 90% of Iran's crude exports. If you capture this island, you can cut off Tehran's economic lifeline, plus use it as a bargaining chip. Which brings us to option number three, extracting Iran's uranium stockpile. The regime has around 440 kilograms of enriched uranium. This is 60% enriched uranium, 440 kilograms of it. Most of it is stored at the facility in Isfahan, that too inside a tunnel complex. Trump will need special forces to complete this mission. Reports say around 1,000 such soldiers have to be deployed. 1,000 American soldiers. Now, if accurate, that would be the largest special forces mission in history, the largest ever. These are the three options on the table. And just to be clear, Trump has not taken the decision yet. He's still considering the extra deployment. But earlier this month, he did approve a different deployment. As we speak, an amphibious group is heading to West Asia. It consists of a landing ship and 2,000 Marines. Such units are usually meant to capture enemy land. Just two problems with this. One, this would be deeply unpopular. Let me show you the results of the latest opinion poll. 60% Americans oppose sending soldiers into Iran. Only 12% support it. Even among Republicans, even among Trump's own party, there is no support. 38% Republicans oppose ground deployments. 35% are unsure. Only 27% support it. Trump's party is already split on this war. Top ideologues like Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan have criticized it. If Trump sends in US troops, the criticism will sharpen. That's the main problem. Secondly, the conditions are not suitable. Isfahan is located in central Iran. If you drop off American soldiers that deep inside Iran, it's a huge risk. Same with Kharg Island and the coastline. US warships have not dared to enter the Persian Gulf, so how will they drop off US Marines? Logic says this war will remain aerial for a while. The US and Israel will keep taking out Iranian capabilities. Then, if they're confident, ground troops may enter the picture. And speaking of the aerial war, that continues. Iran fired more ballistic missiles at central Israel. Some of them were carrying cluster bombs. Several buildings in Tel Aviv were damaged by the strikes, and one foreign worker was killed.
טוב, בטח הוא יו"ר ועד המושב, זה כאילו סיפור.
Iran is also hitting Gulf energy facilities. We'll tell you about that later on the show. On the other side, Israel is expanding its campaign in Lebanon. They have doubled their deployments up north. Israeli airstrikes continue to pound Beirut and southern Lebanon. Even bridges in the south are being blown up. Take a look. Why bridges though? Why are they blowing up the bridges? Let me pull up the map for you. Litani is one of Lebanon's major rivers. In the south, it flows from east to west into the Mediterranean Sea. It sort of splits southern Lebanon from the rest of the country. So if you blow up the bridges, you can isolate southern Lebanon. You can cut off supply lines and transport. And that is what Israel is trying to do here. Meanwhile, the Americans continue their air campaign. The US military is targeting a wide range of sites: missile launchers, naval assets, and drones. Today, the U.S. Secretary of War briefed the media. That's the American Defense Minister. It's become a sort of a ritual. The Secretary offers very little information on the war. Instead, we get a lot of bluster and insults. And today was no different.
And to borrow a page from Admiral Ernest King in World War II, we've decided to share the ocean with Iran. We've given them the bottom half. A dishonest and anti-Trump press will stop at nothing. We know this at this point. To downplay progress, amplify every cost, and call into question every step. The world, the Middle East, our ungrateful allies in Europe, even segments of our own press should be saying one thing to President Trump. Thank you.
Yet the regime remains intact, and we're not saying this. This is what the U.S. intelligence is claiming. America's intel chief Tulsi Gabbard briefed the U.S. Congress yesterday. She says Iran's regime has been degraded, but is intact.
The IC assesses the regime in Iran appears to be intact, but largely degraded due to attacks on its leadership and military capabilities. Its conventional military power projection capabilities have largely been destroyed, leaving limited options. Iran's strategic position has been significantly degraded.
So the regime remains intact, which is why Trump is thinking about extra deployments, maybe even ground operations. The problem is such prolonged deployments lead to unforeseen consequences. Just look at the USS Gerald Ford. It is the largest aircraft carrier in the world. Until this week, it was deployed in the Red Sea, but now the Ford is heading back to a port in Greece. It is basically sailing out of the war zone. Do you know why? Because of a laundry fire. Last week, a fire broke out in the ship's main laundry area. It took 30 hours to bring the blaze under control, and by then, 600 sailors had lost their beds. Many of them ended up sleeping on the floor and on tables. So the US Navy had no option. It had to call the carrier back to port. This is what happens during such far-off missions. Iran is fighting from its own soil, but the US is projecting power thousands of kilometers away. What they've done so far is quite impressive, but far-off wars always have consequences, both intended and unintended. Adding more soldiers to the mix will only increase the risks. Lakh crore rupees evaporated from the Indian stock market today. That's more than 120 billion US dollars, all of it gone in just one day's trade. And it's thanks to the war in West Asia. Today was one of the worst trading sessions of the decade. The Sensex crashed. It lost over 2,400 points. That's a fall of over 3%. The Nifty fell by more than 700 points. Again, that's a loss of more than 3%. And these are not small fluctuations. This is a collapse. The damage will be felt by every sector, mutual funds, pension holdings, even specific stocks. But why did this happen? Why did the market crash? Well, there are three reasons for this, and they're all connected. The first one is oil. The latest wave of attacks have shaken the global energy markets. There have been relentless attacks on oil fields, especially today, after Israel struck Iran's gas fields. And look at Brent crude. It climbed past $118 a barrel in today's trade. The price dipped slightly later in the day. For context, before the war, 1 barrel of Brent crude was at around $70. It was at $70 a barrel. Now it is touching $120. That's a jump of 50%. And that's because the conflict has paralyzed energy supplies. Critical trade routes like the Strait of Hormuz remain shut, and strikes on energy facilities across West Asia are intensifying. All this is making investors nervous about the economy. That is why they're selling in droves. So that's reason number one, oil prices. Reason number two are foreign investors. Foreign money is leaving India. These are the foreign portfolio investors, the large global funds that buy Indian stocks. They've stopped buying. They're selling instead. They've sold over 5 billion worth of stock. This is across the first half of March. And which sector has been hit the hardest? It's the financial stocks, banks, insurance companies, financial services. They account for 60% of all foreign selling. And this is quite significant because financial stocks are the most sought after when it comes to foreign investors. They like owning stock in this sector, but clearly now there's a shift in the mood. The third reason is what happened in Washington yesterday at the US Federal Reserve. The Fed is the central bank of America. Yesterday, it decided to keep interest rates steady.
Today, the FOMC decided to leave our policy rate unchanged. The thing I really want to emphasize is that nobody knows. The economics effect could be bigger, they could be smaller, they could be much smaller or much bigger. We just don't know.
Jerome Powell is the chair of the Fed. He made two big statements today. First was about America's economic outlook. Powell said there is, quote unquote, unusually high uncertainty. Second, inflation. The Fed is worried about rising energy costs, so it fears that inflation could climb, which means American investors are more likely to stay invested in US government bonds. They can earn predictable returns by staying invested in bonds, and they can avoid the risk of emerging markets like India. So all the three forces are now hitting the Indian markets at once. Rising oil prices, a foreign investor exodus, and a Fed that is in no hurry to cut rates. But the damage is not limited to India. Across the world, economies and stock markets are feeling the impact of this war. Take Europe, for instance. ING is a leading Dutch bank. It has downgraded its growth forecast for the Eurozone. The Eurozone is made up of 20 European countries. These are countries that use the euro as their currency. 20 countries, they make up the Eurozone. They're now expected to grow at just 0.9% this year. This is a fall from an earlier forecast of 1.2%. And the reason is energy shocks and supply disruptions. Then you have the Gulf economies. They are suffering too. Of course they are. We told you about the Goldman Sachs assessment. Qatar and Kuwait could lose 14% of their GDP. The UAE could lose 5%. Saudi Arabia 3%. Even Egypt, which is not fighting this war, is paying for it. Soaring fuel costs have forced the Egyptian government to act. Malls, restaurants and shops must now close by 9 p.m. 5 days a week. On weekends, they get 1 extra hour. And for India, the risks are only growing. A new assessment is worrying. It says this war could undo India's progress on trade deals. The gains from recent trade pacts could be offset entirely. And that's what makes this war so devastating. It is causing bloodshed far beyond the battlefield. The war has a new front. It's not a city or a border, it's a gas field. The world's biggest gas field shared by Iran and Qatar. It's called South Pars. Israel attacked it yesterday. Take a look. This is a serious escalation. This is the world's largest natural gas field. It holds enough energy to power the entire planet for 13 years. And now it has been hit. This strike sent oil and gas prices soaring. We've already told you about that, but the fallout goes beyond energy markets. This attack has put Qatar in the crosshairs. It has brought India closer to the war than ever before. We'll explain how. But first, let's tell you what happened. The attack took place yesterday. Israel fired at Iran's South Pars gas field. So far, Israel has neither confirmed nor denied this attack. And what's the damage? Well, some parts of the facility have been hit. That's the initial assessment. The full extent of the loss will become clear in some time. But this is not just about material damage. This is also about the escalation, the biggest escalation in this war, arguably. A, because Israel has hit Iran's lifeline, and B, because it has dragged Qatar into it. South Pars is the backbone of Iran's energy economy. It accounts for 70% of their total gas production. 70% of Iran's total gas production comes from here. And how does Qatar come into the picture? Well, Qatar and Iran share the gas generated from this field. To understand, let's look at the map. This is the Persian Gulf, the body of water that sits between Iran and the Arab world. Now look at the seabed below. Deep underground, there's a single vast reservoir of natural gas. It stretches across the seabed below the two countries. Iran sits above one part and Qatar sits above the other. Iran calls its side the South Pars. Qatar calls its side the North Field. They have different names, but it's effectively the same gas reserve. Which is why Iran hit back immediately. It attacked the facility on the Qatari side. It's called the Ras Laffan. This is an industrial city. The gas extracted from the North Field goes to this city, Ras Laffan. It is home to the world's biggest processing facility for liquefied natural gas, or LNG. This is where Qatar turns raw gas into LNG, and the same supply is shipped across the world. Tehran attacked it, and it may not be done yet. It has intensified attacks across the region. Iran has hit more energy sites, including refineries in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. In Saudi Arabia, an Aramco facility came under attack. In response, Riyadh is threatening military action. The Saudi foreign minister spoke about this today. That's Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud. He said Riyadh reserves the right to respond.
On the contrary, this pressure will backfire. Will backfire politically, will backfire, I believe, morally, and certainly, as we have stated quite clearly, we have reserved the right to take military actions if deemed necessary. And if the time comes, the leadership of the kingdom will take the necessary decision.
And what was Iran's response? Well, Iran is undeterred. Its message is unambiguous. If you attack our energy infrastructure, we will attack yours.
This is a firm warning to those responsible for attacking parts of Iran's fuel and energy infrastructure in the south. In response, the fuel, energy and gas facilities at the source of the attack will be set ablaze and reduced to ashes at the earliest opportunity.
But why was this gas facility hit in the first place? Reports say it was meant to be a deterrent, a way to pressurize Iran to get them to unlock the Strait of Hormuz. But the attack backfired. It has triggered a fresh escalation. Iran struck Qatar, and Trump has threatened Iran. If they attack Qatar again, the US will, and I'm quoting, the US will blow up the entirety of the South Pars gas field. That's what Trump has said. No wonder the markets are jittery and the oil prices are shooting up. And these attacks on South Pars and Ras Laffan could directly impact India too, because we get our gas supplies from these facilities, especially the facility in Qatar. It is India's largest gas supplier. 40% of India's LNG comes from Qatar, and most of it comes from Ras Laffan. In the last financial year, India imported 27 million tons of LNG, out of which 11.2 million tons came from Qatar alone. Even before yesterday's attack, these supplies were disrupted because gas was stuck at the Strait of Hormuz. But that was a supply chain problem. You had the gas, you just could not transport it. With this attack, the story has changed because it has hit gas production. Reports say Iranian attacks have caused serious damage to the facility in Qatar. 17% of Qatar's LNG export capacity has been knocked out. And that is why it marks a dangerous precedent. When you hit energy infrastructure, you make the global energy crisis even worse. Do you know the Good Cop, Bad Cop Act? One person walks in angry, aggressive, breaking things. The other person follows with calm and reason. And together, they get exactly what they want. Now, the question is, are the US and Israel doing it right now? Or is Donald Trump throwing Israel under the bus for a strike in Iran? Here's the context. Like we told you, Israel has hit Iran's South Pars gas field. It's one of the most important energy sites in the world. Iran vowed to respond by attacking Gulf states, and it did. Iran hit Qatar's Ras Laffan industrial city. It's the world's largest LNG hub. LNG is liquefied natural gas. Iran hit the world's largest hub for this gas. Of course, the world was shocked. Markets crashed. Oil prices spiked. Hours later, Trump posted on Truth Social. As always, it was a long post. Let me read out a part of it for you. The United States knew nothing about this particular attack, and the country of Qatar was in no way, shape, or form involved with it, nor did it have any idea that it was going to happen. So Trump is blaming Israel for it. He says Israel acted out of anger. The US did not know anything about this attack. Remember, these two countries are fighting the war together as a team. Israel is America's closest ally in West Asia. It launches a major attack on Iran, and the US says it had no clue. It's hard to buy. It's most likely a lie. Because look at the intel reports. They say that Trump did know about this attack. And look at what Israeli officials are saying. They say the US was very much informed. Donald Trump knew all about it. He did not want to join the attack, but he was definitely not blindsided. That's what Israel is saying. So right now we have two completely different versions. Trump says he did not know about this attack. Israel says he absolutely did. So what's going on here? Is Trump trying to blame Israel for this, or are they both trying to fool the world? We can think of three possibilities. One, Trump is telling the truth. Israel did act by itself. Washington was blindsided, which is why the US president is now lashing out. But this scenario is highly unlikely. Scenario number two, Trump knew about the attack, and now he's just lying. After all, Iran hit Qatar. Qatar is a key regional ally of the US, the same ally that happened to gift a $400 million plane to Trump. And now they get bombed. How can Trump pick sides here? So he chose to pick amnesia instead. Which brings us to our last scenario, the classic good cop, bad cop act. Think of it like this. Israel plays the bad cop and hits Iran hard. Trump plays the good cop. He distances himself from the attack. He calls for calm in West Asia. At the same time, he also issues a threat. Again, let me quote from his post. No more attacks will be made by Israel unless Iran unwisely decides to attack Qatar, in which instance the US, with or without the help or consent of Israel, will massively blow up the entirety of the South Pars gas field at an amount of strength and power that Iran has never seen or witnessed before. If Iran hits Qatar again, Trump says the US will obliterate the entire gas field. He's trying to kill two birds with one stone. One, he is denying involvement, but he's also escalating pressure. But this is a dangerous strategy. Until now, both sides avoided hitting core energy infrastructure because that was a red line. The moment you hit oil and gas, you're not just targeting your enemy, you're bombarding the global economy. And now that line has been crossed. And that is the problem with a good cop, bad cop act. If it doesn't work out, there is no reset button. What does being a superpower look like? Does a superpower start a war it cannot control? Does it start a war that impacts global oil prices? Does it start a war that hurts its own people? These are questions hanging over the United States of America. Washington can project power, but it's also staring at the limits of that power. It is struggling to control the consequences at home, the rising gas prices, the rising public anger, and its own narrative that is unraveling every day. So is this superpower losing control? Our next report explores.
For months, there was a real possibility of a deal between the US and Iran. A deal that could have cooled tensions, stabilized oil markets, and maybe avoided everything that followed. But then, just when peace looked possible, strikes happened. and everything spiraled. Iran retaliates, shipping routes get threatened, and suddenly the world's most important oil choke point, the Strait of Hormuz, became a ticking time bomb. Remember, nearly 20% of the world's oil flows through that narrow stretch of water. You disrupt that, you don't just start a war, you start an economic shockwave. And that shockwave is now hitting ordinary Americans. Oil prices are rising, so are gas prices. A new national poll shows 80% of Americans say gas prices are too high. 2/3 disapprove of how the president is handling it. And here's the killer statistic. Among people who think prices will rise, 60% blame the US president directly. And this is where the superpower image starts to crack. Because global dominance means nothing if people back home feel like they're losing control of their own lives. And here's what the leadership is saying. Vice President J.D. Vance calls it a temporary blip.
Gas prices are up, and we know they're up, and we know that people are hurting because of it, and we're doing everything that we can to ensure that they stay lower. I will say, the president said this, and I certainly agree with it. This is a temporary blip, okay?
And then there's Donald Trump. On one hand, he's asking allies to help secure shipping routes. On the other, he says we don't need anyone's help.
I think NATO's making a very foolish mistake, and I've long said that, I wonder whether or not NATO would ever be there for us. So this was a great test, because we don't need them, but they should have been there.
So what does US want? An Omani diplomat sums it up in an op-ed. He basically says the US has become a superpower that can no longer control outcomes, that it can start conflicts but cannot manage the consequences, that its actions are now creating instability, not order. Because the US started this, wanting to pressure Iran. Instead, oil supply got threatened. Prices shot up globally. Americans are paying the price. And now, the Pentagon is reportedly asking for over $200 billion more to fund this conflict. So just as prices rise at the pump, the cost of the war itself is exploding too.
As far as $200 billion, I think that number could move, obviously. It takes money to kill bad guys. So we're going back to Congress and our folks there to ensure that we're properly funded for what's been done, for what we may have to do in the future, ensure that our ammunition is, everything's refilled, and not just refilled, but above and beyond. I mean, President Trump.
So here's the real question. Is the United States still in control? Or is it reacting to a chain of events it can no longer fully manage? Because being a superpower isn't just about military strength. It's about control. Control over outcomes, control over consequences, control over your own economy. And right now, that control looks shaky.
What happens when a friendship meets a war? It either crumbles or it turns into a tense Oval standoff. That's the dilemma for Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi. She is in the United States for 3 days. She's currently meeting Donald Trump at the White House. The two started with a handshake and smiles.
We have a very special person, just won a tremendous election in a record-setting fashion, so you have something in common. And I was very proud and honored to endorse the Prime Minister because of the fact that I felt she was really good. I thought she did a fantastic job. I respect her a lot, so I gave her an endorsement. And she had the most successful election, in my opinion, in the history of Japan, won by the most ever. So we have a very popular, powerful woman, and she's a great woman. We have a very fine relationship, and we're going to be talking about trade and many other things. And it's an honor to have you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
It started off well, but will it be civil or hostile going forward? Why do we ask this? Well, let's rewind back to October last year. That's 2025, October 2025. Senator Takaichi had been in office for a week. Trump landed in Tokyo. She rolled out the red carpet for him, and it looked like a perfect match. Takaichi wanted to prove that she was strong on security, and Trump loves leaders he can do business with. So there were promises, big investments, military cooperation. Everything looked smooth. The current visit by Takaichi was planned back then, in October. But since then, a lot has happened. The US and Israel have attacked Iran, and Iran has hit back. They're at war. It's a conflict that Japan is closely watching because more than 90% of Japan's oil comes from West Asia. And almost all of it passes through the Strait of Hormuz. So Japan is suffering. Fuel prices are rising. Tokyo is dipping into emergency reserves. For Prime Minister Takaichi, this is a big test, especially in her first year in office. And Donald Trump has made it worse. Earlier this week, he called on allies to help secure the Strait of Hormuz, and he specifically mentioned countries like Japan. US allies rejected his request. So did Tokyo. Trump was mighty upset. He said Washington did not need anyone's help, but today he says he will discuss it with Takaichi.
Mr. President, are you fully satisfied with the level of support that you're getting from Japan on Iran, including around minesweepers?
Well, we're going to be speaking about it today. We're going to be speaking about it today. We've had tremendous support and relationship with Japan on everything. And I believe that based on statements that were given to us yesterday, the day before yesterday, having to do with Japan, they are really stepping up to the plate. Yes.
Knowing Donald Trump, he won't drop it. He will most likely double down on it. And at the receiving end could be Senator Takaichi. It's something that she came prepared for.
Nothing has been decided regarding deploying the self-defense forces. We will maintain close communication with relevant countries, including the United States, and consider necessary measures within the Japanese legal framework under the current situation.
Of course, Japan cannot say yes to Trump. Their constitution does not allow it. They have what is called a pacifist constitution. It bars Japan from fighting wars abroad. And more than the constitution, the public opinion is against it. People do not want Japanese ships in West Asian waters, in a West Asian war. And Prime Minister Takaichi knows this. She has already warned that getting involved in the Iran war could make Japan a target.
As I mentioned earlier, we intend to clearly convey what we can and cannot do in accordance with Japanese law. The U.S. should already be well aware of Japan's legal framework from the past experience.
Now you may wonder, if she can't say yes and Trump won't take a no, then why is she even going to the White House? Why is she there? Well, she's there because walking away would be worse. Japan depends on the U.S. for security. They live with dangerous neighbors like China and North Korea. Without Washington, Japan feels exposed. So Takaichi is walking a tightrope. She has to find a way to show support without actually joining the war. And if this wasn't messy enough already, there is Taiwan. Earlier, Takaichi had said that if China attacks Taiwan, Japan could step in. And that had triggered Beijing. Now, a new US intel report is out. It says Takaichi's statement marks a significant shift for Tokyo. A shift that Japan could intervene in this conflict. But Tokyo has rejected this report. So what happens next? Behind closed doors, Trump is expected to build pressure for ships, for support, for a show of loyalty. And Takaichi will have to push back carefully. If she refuses too much, it would anger the Americans. If she agrees too much, it would anger the Japanese. Either way, this promises to be a difficult meeting. This war is also being fought on your phone screens and social media platforms. Governments have always needed to sell their wars. In the 1940s, it was with posters and radio broadcasts. In the Gulf War, it was with live television. In 2026, it's with memes, cartoons, and video game clips. From SpongeBob SquarePants to the protagonist of GTA San Andreas. Even the Pokemon have been drafted to sell this war to the Americans. The White House is cheering the results. They claim their TikTok-style videos have racked up billions of impressions, and they're calling that a success. But not everyone agrees. A Hollywood star is angry and veterans are disgusted. Here's a report.
The United States is at war with Iran, and it is fighting on two fronts. One, in the skies over West Asia. The other, on your phone screen. The Trump White House has found an unlikely recruit to sell this war to the world: SpongeBob SquarePants. On the 6th of March, the White House posted a clip on X. In it, SpongeBob SquarePants says, "Do you want to see me do it again?" Unclassified footage follows, showing American missiles tearing through Iranian jets and trucks. SpongeBob is not alone. The main character from GTA San Andreas, even Pokemon, they have all been drafted. This is war propaganda, Trump style. So, why is the White House doing this? Because it is working. According to Politico, the strategy is deliberate. TikTok-style videos. Those with a more traditional view of wartime communication have been left stunned. But the White House is not chasing tradition. It is chasing numbers. One of the videos clocked over 3 billion impressions, just over 4 days after release. A senior White House official called it the biggest communications win of Trump's second term. Behind the videos is a small team of very online White House staffers. Their brief is to post the kind of content that fills their own private group chats. It is certainly getting the eyeballs all right. The clips are designed to keep Trump's core MAGA base charged. But not everyone is thrilled about it. The videos have drawn sharp backlash from Hollywood and from veterans. One montage featured a clip from Tropic Thunder, the 2008 war satire directed by and starring Ben Stiller. Stiller was not amused. He went on X and told the White House directly, "War is not a movie." He said his film was used without permission and demanded the clip be removed. The criticism did not stop there. Connor Crehan, an Iraq war veteran, also pushed back. He wrote that war is not a video game, that its consequences are final, and that treating it with a cavalier approach was something he could not accept. But behind the memes and the montages lies a harder truth. The White House is trying to sell a war that most Americans do not want. A new NBC News poll found that 54% of registered voters disapprove of how Trump is handling Iran. 52% say the military action should not have happened at all. Only 41% back it. Donald Trump ran on ending endless wars. Trump told voters in 2024 that America had bled enough abroad. And now his own staffers are splicing missile strikes into cartoon clips, trying to move those numbers. 3 billion impressions, and still a majority unconvinced. The videos are loud, the opposition is quiet, but it is there, and no amount of virality can change that.
What does Donald Trump consider to be a threat? Let's listen to his own words.
Iraq, the regime has armed, trained, and funded terrorist militias that have soaked the earth with blood and guts, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland.
So that's a threat, a sponsor of terrorism, and a maker of long-range missiles. Missiles that could hit mainland America. Who do you think Trump is talking about here? In this case, it's Iran. But do you know who fits the bill perfectly? Pakistan. They're not building a nuclear bomb. They already have it, the Pakistanis. They have long sponsored terrorist groups, even hosted Osama bin Laden, and now they're building intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs. Says who? Trump's own intelligence chief.
The intelligence community assesses that Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, and Pakistan have been researching and developing an array of novel, advanced, or traditional missile delivery systems with nuclear and conventional payloads that put our homeland within range. Pakistan's long-range ballistic missile development potentially could include ICBMs with a range capable of striking the homeland.
First of all, great company. Pakistan has been clubbed with all of America's enemies, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. I guess Shehbaz Sharif's flattery did not work. He called Trump the savior of South Asia, but the Trump administration has dubbed Pakistan a missile threat to the US. We say, well done on the diplomacy. But let's take a closer look at this claim. ICBMs are the longest range missiles, anything over 5,500 kilometers. Pakistan's longest range missile is the Shaheen-3. It can fly up to 2,750 kilometers. As of now, Pakistan does not have an ICBM, but the US says Islamabad is building this capability. Now, India has reacted to the US report. It has basically said, tell us something new.
See, Pakistan's clandestine history of nuclear proliferation is for everybody to see, and everybody understands that and the risk that it poses to the international community. So there is nothing new in it. It's just that, this has been yet again highlighted.
And how is Pakistan responding? Well, their foreign ministry has not issued a statement yet, but this assessment is not new. Even during the Joe Biden administration, the assessment was the same, that Pakistan was building ICBMs. In fact, Biden sanctioned Pakistan's ballistic missile program. Back then, Islamabad had pushed back. They said their missiles are only aimed at deterring India, and America was not on their radar. Of course, Pakistan would never lie about their military, so sure, let's believe them. But here's a bigger question for the United States. Your own intelligence says Iran was not building a nuclear bomb, yet you went ahead and attacked them. In Pakistan's case, there is no confusion or doubt. They do have nuclear bombs. The civilian leaders do not control those bombs. Pakistan's nukes are controlled by their military. This does not even happen in North Korea. As for terrorism, Pakistan is the mothership. They host sanctioned terrorists. They supported the Afghan Taliban. They hosted Osama bin Laden. Even now, their spy agencies sponsor terrorist groups. Yet why hasn't America taken on Pakistan? Iran got US attacks. Pakistan got a White House visit. Just think about the hypocrisy. Pakistan is sitting on the most dangerous nuclear stockpile in the world. You've got the Pakistani Taliban trying to topple the state. You've got ethnic insurgents and foreign fighters. What happens if these nukes fall into their hands? The US intelligence is silent on that. And they're silent because of two reasons. One, the window of action has passed. Once you build a bomb, there is nothing you can do. Nobody can touch you or coerce you. And two, the Pakistani regime is compliant. They have weaponized the vulnerability of their nukes. Let me explain. The Americans know that Pakistan's stockpile is dangerous. Former President Joe Biden admitted it. He said Pakistan's nukes lacked any cohesion. He called Pakistan the most dangerous place in the world. And their army has weaponized this. They have depicted themselves as the protectors of Pakistan's nuclear arsenal. If the army is strong, they can secure the nukes. If not, the nukes may fall into the wrong hands. And America has surrendered to this nuclear blackmail. So here's our message to Donald Trump. If you're serious about peace, start with Pakistan. Cut off their military aid, impose an arms embargo, sanction their military and spy agencies, and push for nuclear accountability. If they refuse, push for denuclearization. That would end Pakistan's reign of terror in the region. Their terrorists would no longer hide behind the nuclear umbrella. Of course, none of this will happen because Trump is not interested in actual peace. He's only interested in power. Our next story is almost like a spy thriller. Covert foreign operatives, a rebellion across the border, a tip-off from a friendly country, and a brewing political row. And it's all happening right here in India. It began last Friday. That's when 7 foreign nationals were arrested across India. 6 of them were from Ukraine and 1 from the US. His name is Matthew Aaron Van Dyke. All 7 of them were trying to fly out of India, but Indian officials got to them first. Vantage was detained at the Kolkata airport. 3 of the Ukrainians were detained at the Lucknow airport and the remaining 3 at the Delhi airport. All of them are now in the custody of the NIA, that's the National Investigation Agency. It is India's premier counter-terrorism agency. These suspects will remain in NIA custody till the 27th of March. The question is, what did these 7 men do? They came to India on tourist visas, but once here, they allegedly dabbled in terrorist activities. Indian officials have leveled 3 main charges. 1, these men entered restricted areas in Mizoram. Mizoram is a state in northeast India. It shares a border with Myanmar. Some parts of Mizoram are restricted to foreign nationals. You need permission before visiting them. But these 7 men violated that rule. Charge number 2, from Mizoram, they illegally crossed into Myanmar. And charge number 3, they trained and armed ethnic groups in Myanmar. Now, as you know, Myanmar is in the middle of a civil war right now. Multiple ethnic groups are fighting the military regime there. Some of them also support insurgent groups in India's northeast. The NIA says these men trained ethnic fighters. They also smuggled drones from Europe into Myanmar via India, which raises the obvious question, why? Who asked them to do this? The NIA is carrying out an extensive probe. Mobile phones and social media activity are being searched. I'm sure interrogations are also happening. So right now we can only wait for those details to come out. Meanwhile, the arrests have triggered a diplomatic storm. Ukraine's foreign ministry has lodged a protest. They say there is no proof of unlawful activities. They're calling Indian media reports manipulative and unfounded. And what about the US? The American embassy has refused to comment, but yesterday US Ambassador Sergio Gore met with India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. The speculation is maybe it had something to do with this arrest. Today, the Indian Foreign Ministry was asked about this episode. Here's what they said.
This is a legal matter. The relevant GOI agencies are investigating it presently. We had a related question as to whether we have received consular access request. Yes, we have received consular access request, and these will be addressed keeping in mind the legal requirements that are involved in this particular case.
So consular access has been sought. India says it will respond according to the law. But technicalities aside, what's really happening here? First, look at the strategic play. Myanmar's ruling junta is very close to China. Beijing wants to use Myanmar to access the Indian Ocean, but the junta is facing a major rebellion from ethnic groups. Some reports say the US is covertly supporting those rebels. There was even talk of creating a supply line from Bangladesh to Myanmar, one that was reportedly rejected by Dhaka. So that could be one possibility. These men were using India as a staging ground. Their mission was to foment trouble in Myanmar. The US suspect, Van Dyke, fits the bill. He's basically an American mercenary. Wherever there's a rebellion, he surfaces. In 2011, he fought the Libyan civil war. Later, he was on the ground in Syria. He also advised Venezuelan rebels. And recently, he signed up to fight for Ukraine. So this is a man known for covert military operations. But the question is he working for someone? And to make matters more complicated, there's a Russia angle too. Apparently, it was Moscow that tipped off Indian officials. India has not confirmed this, but Ukraine is already rushing to conclusions. They're hinting at a Russian conspiracy. Like I said, we cannot draw conclusions yet, but we cannot ignore the red flags either. Let me take you back to December 2024. Indian officials seized a Starlink terminal from insurgents in Manipur. Back then, Starlink was not even approved in India. So where did these groups get the terminal? Reports say it was smuggled in from Myanmar. Plus, last year, Mizoram's chief minister had flagged a similar threat. Let me quote from what he said. We have specific intelligence that the Ukraine war veterans traveled to Myanmar's Chin state via Mizoram to train rebel outfits fighting the military junta. So don't look at this controversy in isolation. It is part of a worrying trend. India has cordial relations with the Myanmar junta, but the rebel groups have ties to anti-India insurgents. So it is important that officials get to the bottom of this. I know it sounds like a spy thriller, but this is a real-world problem with real-world consequences. If you're an investor, I know you hate Donald Trump. Maybe you had high hopes for 2026, but the US president had other plans. He began the year by kidnapping the president of Venezuela, and now he's unleashed war in West Asia. Many users on the internet have the same complaint, that their portfolio resembles a bloodbath. As financial gurus say, you have to ride the tough times. Only then can you reap the benefits. Until then, maybe these online jokes will soften the blows. Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. An Israeli missile strike lands just meters away from a reporter and a cameraman in Lebanon. Srinagar's tulip gardens dazzle visitors with 2 million flowers in bloom, and staff struggle to restrain a dancing robot at a Chinese restaurant. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 2003, the US invaded Iraq to oust dictator Saddam Hussein. The US said Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. Washington called it a threat to international peace. 461,000 people died during the war. It cost the US $3 trillion, but no weapons of mass destruction were found. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
أعزائنا المشاهدين دمتم مساء.
فوق الفلك. against Naharia and a minute